Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope all of you are having a great summer. Football in Europe is back and we watched the first big game of the season for the Community Shield title between Arsenal and Manchester City. Compared to last year's Community Shield game, we saw teams were much more ready for the new season. I was expecting Arsenal to have a significant advantage over City since they opened the season earlier than them, but it was not the case, and we watched a very competitive game with interesting tactical decisions that are certainly worth talking about. So let's talk about this. Like their last game against Arsenal, City started with a 4-2 build-up at the back. Arsenal are one of the best pressing teams in the league, but last April they were a little bit surprised with Guardiola's decision to start with 4-2 and struggled with their high press, while City was very effective with their direct balls. City couldn't use those direct balls as effectively as their previous game, and there were obvious individual and collective reasons for that. First of all, they don't look unready at all, but they are also certainly not at their 100% physically yet. Keeping this in mind, Pep's choice for Ortega instead of Ederson was another limiting factor about direct balls. Ortega had a really good game, and it might be a bit assertive, some may not agree with this, but I believe he might be even better with his short passing, his decisions during deep build-ups to find the empty player in closer distance. But when it is larger distance, Ederson's passing accuracy over longer distances and his vision to see good 1v1s at the opponent's half are way better than Ortega's. Of course, Ortega should not be solely blamed about this, and he actually had a very good game, made critical saves. Another important factor was Saliba, undoubtedly. Towards the end of last season, Arsenal really missed him, and this game we once again understood why they did. He was very solid in all duels against Haaland. One other important factor was the lack of players to link with Haaland. We know Kevin De Bruyne and Gündoğan were very good at finding Haaland, and although Kovacic made a few attempts to find Haaland, we saw that the duo needs some more time to improve cohesion a bit. And above all these individual aspects, Arteta's plan out of possession was very good to stop City's build-ups and didn't allow them to have many advantageous progressions. Arteta used very narrow structures at low, mid, high blocks to close inner channels. At high block, they were sort of having a shape of 4-4-2 diamond. Rice on Rodri, Havertz between Ortega and Stones, Ødegaard between Kovacic and Diaz, Martinelli and Saka staying narrow but ready to trap opponent fullbacks, and Partey providing +1 at the backline most of the times, while Saliba on Haaland, Gabriel on Alvarez. As Ortega starts the game, Havertz initiates the press while shadowing Stones. When Ortega sends the ball to Diaz, Ødegaard jumps while shadowing Kovacic, and this stops this progression through center and right side and mostly forced to keep the ball at their left side. Even when City could pass the pressure, they didn't have the chance to increase the tempo, and Arsenal could settle on a narrow and compact 4-4-2 mid-block. First 20 minutes ended up with 79% City possession, but this dominance in possession only resulted in 2 shots, each at 0.01 xg. As City started losing their patience in build-up and making some simple errors, Arsenal became more encouraged. For the first time we saw Arsenal to have a clear patient build-up play after 20th minutes, and they could create an important chance with it. This time Arteta was also ready to surprise City with a different build-up. In Arsenal build-ups, we saw Rice constantly joining the first line against City's 4-4-2 mid-block, making a line of 3 at the back, fullbacks providing width, and Saka and Martinelli coming to half spaces to offer options. Arsenal clearly wanted to use their right flank, as they did in most of their pre-season friendlies, to create trouble against their opponents. The goal was to attract Diaz and make Saka or White run in behind, or at least to have an advantageous 1v1. They were very successful with this approach in the first half and created 2 important chances. First half ended without a goal, although it is fair to say Arsenal was the team much closer to score 1 compared to City. At the beginning of the second half, we naturally saw some changes in City's build-up play. Obviously, Guardiola wanted to progress through center, therefore the change was to make life a bit harder for Arsenal central midfielders. To do that, we saw in the second half the distance between Diaz and Kovacic was increased in build-ups. This means Ødegaard now had to defend a larger distance. Secondly, Rodri started to move a bit higher, so when Rice followed him, this created space for City to progress. And third, Bernardo started to play at right and Alvarez at the left half spaces. This created a problem for Partey, as Saliba was hesitant to leave, Haaland to move on Alvarez, and Timber was hesitant to follow Bernardo that deep. No doubt, higher position of Walker was also a reason for that. Arteta's answer was to change the pressing structure to an even more aggressive one. Martinelli moved up to jump on stones, Havertz moved on Kovacic. This on paper meant Arsenal changed into a full court, almost man-marking approach, and that's why Guardiola made his substitutions to spoil these 1v1s further. The substitutions made Arteta immediately turn back to his original pressing structure to close the inner channels again, but after the substitutions in City build-ups, Bernardo started to join backline by moving to left of Diaz. Now Odegaard stayed between them, but he didn't have the angle to shadow the inner channels anymore. Rice staying on Rodri means it was only Partey to close all inner channels. In addition, we saw three creative minds of Guardiola's team. Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne and Foden were all on the left half space, something we are certainly not used to see in a Guardiola team, while Palmer creating confusion by constantly roaming between the right wider corridor and the right half space. This was too much weight on Partey's shoulders. City could finally create the structural dominance over Arsenal. City could create a few threatening situations with this dominance as well, and eventually Partey was naturally a few seconds late to catch Foden in build-up, who controlled the ball with a beautiful touch, and it was the first time in the whole game City could progress with an advantage, could increase the tempo after breaking the pressure line, and this ended up with Palmer's beautiful shot and the goal. It was really impressive that we saw City playing a structure that we had never seen before from them, and I don't think they specifically had worked on this before the game. I strongly believe it was an improvisation of Guardiola and his coaching staff at that moment to overload the central regions against Arsenal, and players implemented it perfectly, and it ended up with a goal. Arteta naturally took some risks, put his attackers in the game. City could create a few more chances in the next minutes when Arsenal players dropped a bit mentally and confused, but last seconds Arsenal found the equalizer. While they were unlucky, very unlucky missing the chances in the first half, that lucky deflection at last seconds pushed the game to penalties and eventually brought the title to Arsenal. I was a bit surprised how City couldn't kill the game at the last seconds. They were really good at it in last season, certainly not shy to use a few more defenders in last minutes. While Guardiola had the chance to substitute two more players, I did expect him to add Laporte and Phillips to the game, who could have been an extra leg to try blocking Trossard's shot at last seconds. In conclusion, I especially found the second half of the game quite entertaining, as both coaches were constantly changing their structures and footballers were implementing their coaches' demands perfectly on the pitch. Many players played at more than one position in the game, showing how versatile these footballers and teams are. As my own prediction, I believe these structural changes between games, within games, will become something more common this season, and this will make the teams need more versatile players. I believe this prediction might be shared by Arsenal and City, as we can see from their squad planning and transfers, many players comfortably play at multiple positions. I edited all screenshots with Once Video Analyzer Pro. I strongly recommend this user-friendly editing software. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to press the like button and subscribe my channel. Until next time.